I believe that if there is one thing that One Piece teaches us, it is this. It's not enough to care only about your own freedom or the freedom of people like you. True freedom arises only when we have the courage and the compassion to insist that for anyone to be free, we all must be free. Welcome to my channel on the best of fantasy. Let's talk One Piece, specifically the Whole Cake Island arc and the Reverie arc. I'm going to be doing, as usual, a thematic breakdown. I am not going to be doing a comprehensive covering of everything that happens in Whole Cake Island, so I do apologize if I miss out on your favorite moment or character or what have you. Please do leave comments, though. Please leave comments about your favorite moments, your favorite characters, whether I mention them or not. I am always happy to learn from you guys. That has been a really wonderful part of this journey. Also, before you leave comments, I have checked out the musical numbers in Whole Cake Island, and they do add a lot to the atmosphere here. The eeriness, the weirdness, the sticky, sweet weirdness of it all. Just really cool stuff. So I'm not an anime watcher. I read the manga, but I will occasionally check out episodes and things. I've watched whole series of videos within a particular arc only once, but I do like to check out the anime every once in a while, especially when I get recommendations. And I will say that those musical numbers are fantastic. So thank you to those of you who did recommend those. Now, I want to get to this thematic discussion here. One of the things that One Piece deals with a lot is family. And in relation to this idea of freedom and compassion and all of that, I think there's a lot going on here. In One Piece, a true family consists of the people who not only allow you, but help you to become your best self. They give you the space and the freedom to be you, even as they make it clear that they are there with you till the end. The opposite of this, of course, is a family where force and oppression are the norm and where masks have to be worn in order to give the appearance of conformity. There are a lot of masks being worn in Whole Cake Island, that is for sure. An example of a family that functions through compulsion is, of course, the Vinsmokes. This is Sanji's birth family, his biological family. And his father, Judge, is an obvious example of somebody who works with a top-down model. The idea that the world revolves around his desires and that his family members are mere tools for him to exert his will on the world. This is a very self-serving way of interacting with other people, and not to speak of one's own family members. He regards Sanji as a sacrifice, of course, calling him a failure over and over again since childhood as well. So a despicable character, for sure. And Sanji's brothers are really not much better, although they at least have the excuse that they were kind of engineered this way, which is actually pretty tragic when you think about it. But Germa 66 as a whole, as an organization, is a source of oppression when you think about they're in the business of making weapons, distributing weapons to places in order to enforce authoritarianism in the world. And when countries enlist Germa 66, they're making a deal with the devil. There is no respect for an individual's will, for their freedom, or for humanity in general. It's a very mechanical and loveless view of life as they seek to elevate themselves at the expense of others. They bring a lot of destruction into the world as a consequence. But there is a little ray of hope in that family, and that is Reiju. And by the way, as I always say, I probably am going to mispronounce some names here, and I do apologize. I'm going with Reiju for Sanji's older sister's name, and do correct me in the comments if I'm saying it incorrectly. But she obviously is a bit of an exception here. She has managed to preserve some of her humanity amidst this very toxic, dysfunctional, power-hungry family, if we want to even call it a family. But she saves Luffy, for example. Early on, we get the feeling that, okay, there's something good about this person. She saves Luffy from the poison. And she obviously cares for Sanji. And she, even as a child, she protects him. She pretends sometimes to obey her father, like, for example, with the manacle that is put around Sanji's wrist in order to force his obedience. She makes sacrifices as well. She makes a genuine sacrifice for Sanji, wanting him to be free of this domineering family and its toxic effects on the individual members. She wants a better life for Sanji, and she's willing to give herself to that cause. And I think there is something really beautiful to that. So she certainly does manage to preserve her humanity. But I'll be going back to her in a bit as well later, because she is relevant to some of the other themes that I want to roll into this. But let's just suffice to say that the Germa 66 is not the biggest bully on the block. That they actually, in starting this alliance with Big Mom, they are messing with an even bigger and more treacherous bully. And that is, of course, Big Mom, who has, even within her family, she has treachery in the form of Beige. Again, sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. The Capone boss guy, Beige, which I think is an important point, because it does prove the fragility of an alliance that is based on domination. When you have domination as the main mechanism of enforcing conformity, you are bound to have some rebellion in there. You are bound to have treachery and machinations and all that sort of thing. And there are machinations galore in Whole Cake Island. Now, I feel it is important to say that Big Mom literally sucks the life out of anyone who steps out of line, including her own children. Look at poor Sir Moscato. My goodness. So her dream of equality really rings false. This idea of bringing together people from various parts of the world in this little paradise, it rings false because she attempts to achieve this through compulsion, through oppression, and the insistence on one way of thinking and being. The leave or life choice is not really a choice at all. This is oppression masquerading as choice. Lola, no wonder Lola runs away. Lola, whom we met earlier, the only way to get out of there, I mean, she was being forced into, and this happens to all the other kids as well, this marriage against their own will. This is going to be very relevant when we start talking about Sanji and Pudding, Pudding particularly. But a good example of a member of the Big Mom family who really leans into this authoritarianism, this top-down approach is Smoothie. Smoothie's scary, the way she wrings out her victims and takes the life out of them in a way that is similar to what Big Mom does when she takes the soul out of people. So Big Mom is really a nightmare maternal figure. Her love is actually very selfish in nature, as she smothers those around her and insists on their conformity. She robs them of their will. This is the opposite of what a true family does. She takes away their will. She enslaves parts of their souls for her own ends. And this is really, mostly by force, but there's also a great deal of manipulation and deception. As I said before, a lot of masks within this family. So many members of the family, like Cracker, for example, whom Luffy has one of the early epic fights with. Cracker is really, he's wearing a mask of a sort. It's a cracker mask. And Luffy, of course, defeats him by eating his way to victory. We're going to have a lot to say about food in this one as well. Food plays an outsized role here in the story. But yeah, you've also got Pudding as well. Pudding wears a mask of sorts. She is pretending to be something that she is not. Although in her case, it gets to the point of having almost like a split personality. We're going to talk about that as well. But these characters are dangerous. Characters like Cracker and Pudding, because of their disguises and the masks that they wear, pretending to be one thing, but being something else underneath. And this is a result of the kind of oppressive style of family that we see with Big Mom. Now, an example of a different kind of family, a family that is supportive, that understands that freedom is necessary for a person to become their best self. This is Jinbei's crew. Now you have Jinbei's crew letting him go in order to become his true self and join the Straw Hats. They tell him to go live his own life. This is true love. This is what a family does. And of course, the Straw Hats are the prime example of this as well. They are certainly a very supportive crew. They would not be what they are without each other. We see this time and time again. And I could give numerous examples from Whole Cake Island of this, but I think it's proper that we focus especially on Luffy and Sanji here. And this is one of the most beautiful parts of Whole Cake Island. I got pretty darn emotional during the encounter between Luffy and Sanji, which I'm going to talk about right now. But it is clear that they are both willing to sacrifice for the other. Sanji sacrifices his own happiness for the sake of his fellow Straw Hats, saying what he knows will hurt Luffy in order to get him away and get him to stop trying to save Sanji. Luffy, of course, he is going to be stubborn about this, but he does so in a way that really impressed me. He refuses to fight. He's actually gotten pretty clever, and of course he is as persistent as ever, and he has grown as a captain, as a leader. He knows how to bring out the best in his crew now. This is a really, I think, an interesting contrast, say, with what happened much earlier with Usopp, where Luffy did get into a fight with Usopp and kind of was dragged into it, didn't really willingly go into it, but did go through with it. And here, I think he handles the situation with Sanji much better. So I've seen Luffy grow as a leader here. He understands that he does not need force to accomplish what he wants to accomplish here, to allow Sanji to make the decision that is best for Sanji. He does so in a way that is actually quite beautiful. And he stubbornly refuses to leave and even to eat. Now this is Luffy. He refuses to eat, knowing the way to reach Sanji and leaving the door open to Sanji for him to take back his role of feeding the Straw Hats. Also, through one of Luffy's most astounding shows of empathy yet, he knows that for all the physical pain that he endures at Sanji's hands, well, actually, it's at Sanji's feet, but you know what I mean. It's his friend who is feeling the pain here. This is a beautiful moment that Luffy understands that even as Sanji is inflicting physical pain on Luffy, it is Sanji who is hurting deeply inside as he is trying. They're both trying in this moment to do what is best for their friend. And it's Luffy's refusal to eat, ultimately, and Sanji's pain at feeling unable to feed his friend and his captain. That is one of the most moving panels I have seen in One Piece. It is a true beauty here. And then Oda even ups that one by showing Luffy at his most vulnerable, acknowledging that he needs Sanji to achieve his dream of becoming king of the pirates. And I think this is a beautiful moment of acknowledging that they are mutually dependent on each other. And that is what a family is. They are dependent on one another to achieve their best, to become their best person. And they are both trying in this moment to allow the other the freedom to become their best. And such a friendship, such a bond, it just goes even beyond family. I don't know if there are words for it even, but to place one's dreams in the hands of another is an ultimate act of trust. And of course, that is a hugely important part of what being a family is trust. And Luffy stubbornly trusts Sanji to come. He's going to sit there till the end of the world because he knows that Sanji is going to come. Even when he's trapped inside the book along with Nami, from which, by the way, Jinbei, good Jinbei moment, Jinbei rescues them. Even there, he refuses to give up, never for a moment losing hope, even as he's almost breaking his own hands off to reach Sanji because he told him he would be there. And he eventually does indeed return to the spot where he swore to wait for Sanji after Reiju tells him that Sanji knows about pudding. Once Luffy understands that Sanji knows about pudding, he goes back to that spot, showing complete faith in his friend. A faith that proves, of course, well placed when Sanji arrives to feed his friend and his brother and his captain. And it's very significant, of course, that he has brought all the favorites of all the Straw Hats, as Luffy observes, in one box, showing how they are a family in this moment. This is just, it's as if they're all present there because Sanji has made all of their favorite foods. Such a beautifully orchestrated moment. In turn, Luffy gets Sanji to reveal his own wishes, his dreams, his will to return to the Straw Hats. And they resolve to find a way together because that's what a family does. They have each other's backs. They are ready to sacrifice. They place faith in each other and thus find a way. Such as when Sanji knows that his friends believe he will bake a cake to save everyone. Sanji knows this, and this is what gives him strength. And so here is a family that is solidly based on trust, mutual respect, understanding, and compassion, not just for each other, but also for those outside the family that they encounter. It's worth noting how Sanji even seeks to save the Vinsmokes, though he has rejected them as family, living up to the ideals of his true father, Chef Zeph, of course. And having been shown mercy, even Germa66 later shows some value in keeping Big Mom's forces at bay. They play a role in the end, which I think is a wonderful thing, that Sanji's compassion reverberates. It has repercussions in the world. This is similar to how Luffy shows loyalty to Beige and his crew after they form an alliance. Luffy refuses to abandon his ally. This is a refusal to abandon others is an obvious example of seeing the humanity in even those that we deem to be one-time foes. But at this moment, I would like to comment on how I've already brought up the idea of food a couple times here, and it is indeed a major ingredient of this theme of compassion and freedom, nourishing and a way to care. This is what food can be. This is what Sanji is really all about. This is why this is such a beautiful arc in terms of exploring his character and what makes him tick. But of course, there is another side to food as well. We see it in Whole Cake Island. It can also be a bit too much. It can be sticky sweet. It can even become toxic and a means of control. But primarily what we see here is Sanji and his early love for food as nourishing. And it comes from his love for his mother. Now, this is another really great backstory. Sanji already had what probably was one of my favorite backstories, if not my favorite backstory of the entire series. But adding to this element of his relationship with his mother, I thought was truly beautiful. His father calling his early efforts to feed and nourish rat food because he practiced on the rats there, his seemingly only friends as he was growing up. The father, Judge, he insists that royalty doesn't serve, and he trivializes love and compassion by calling it rat food. He treats people as tools once again. He values only obedience, and he rules through fear. So why is Sanji different? Of course, it's all about his mother. And there is the explanation that Reiju gives of how his mother attempted to save her children from being the brutal machines that his father, Judge, wanted them to be, weakening herself in the process. It was a sacrifice that restored humanity, at least to one of her children, to Sanji. Now, whether it was the medicine that she took to stop the experiment on her or on her children, or whether it was simply her love, Sanji was different from his brothers. And in turn, he attempts to love her back through food. Very moving part of the story. Their mother's love, I think, also does affect Reiju, who sees the value in love and continues, and I think, in a sense, her mother's mission to preserve emotion in Sanji. It is Reiju who wants him to find his fulfillment in being one of the Straw Hats, which she perceives is Sanji's true family. And another thing I think that is worth noting here is that Sanji's attachment to his mother, and I think to some degree also his sister, his older sister, is a big part of the reason that he is so chivalric, if you want to put it nicely, around women. I think another big reason, of course, for this is the influence of Chef Zeph, his true father, his chosen family. So that is, I think, it doesn't necessarily. I still am going to roll my eyes when Sanji has his nosebleeds, but I do appreciate this exploration of him and his character and why he is the way he is, and he is a beloved character for me, no doubt about it. Just this story really added to my love for Sanji as a character. Now back to the ideas of freedom and will. Just to recap, we have the Vinsmokes who operate through compulsion. Big Mom smothers through her poorly disguised oppression. The family of hers, they're mere extensions of her will. They have no true will of their own. And of course, we have, in contrast to this, the Straw Hats, who believe in each other and thus create strength in each other. This is a matter of smothering versus self-belief. And I think this is illustrated beautifully in the character of Pudding and her, her transformation back and forth in here, from sweet to sinister to conflicted, really. And she becomes a kind of Dr. Jekyll and three-eyed Ms. Hyde, if you will. But it is Sanji who brings out her best self by understanding her, by winning her over through his perception and his empathy, appealing to and showing her the beauty of her better self as she is. Though she sort of comically continues to waffle between these two personalities as she increasingly falls for Sanji. But I do think it's a really beautiful part of this whole thing that they don't marry. But they do collaborate along with Chiffon. I think let's not leave out Chiffon here. But they do collaborate on the wedding cake that kind of saves the day here. And I think it is a really beautiful thing that Pudding becomes genuinely sacrificial in her willingness to let go of Sanji. Keeping a memory, of course, and this is a really beautiful moment here, that she keeps a memory of what might have been with him. She keeps it to herself, though, and that is her one request to Sanji as he leaves her behind. I really enjoyed the development and the conflict. I mean, there is some really seriously well-developed conflict. It's screaming off the page here in Pudding. But I think she really does illustrate the difference between someone who operates through a kind of smothering oppression, and that is her at her worst moments. That is her when she doesn't believe in herself and she lashes out of anger and isolation and fear. And then there is her best self, which Sanji brings out through compassion. And that is a sacrificial self. That is a loving and empathetic self. So that's really great. And then, of course, this isn't all about friendships and all of that, and romance and all that. It is also about rivalries. We've got lots of great rivalries in One Piece, but this arc delivered my favorite so far. And my favorite antagonist in One Piece so far, I'm going to talk about in a moment. We're going to get into Luffy versus Katakuri. There's just all kinds of really cool things to say about that. But it is important, I think, to note before I get into it, though, that not all who are caught within the system of oppression are just pure evil, right? Even Big Mom herself, we can talk about that. But you have characters like Brûlé, who is forced to help the Straw Hats, by the way, and that's played for some comedy. But I also think that we do develop some sympathy for her when we get the flashback to her childhood and how she was alienated and ostracized and wounded as a kid, and the bond that she had with Katakuri, which is deep and genuine. But yes, Big Mom herself, Oda somehow even generates, I think, a bit of sympathy and understanding for Big Mom through her isolation and her abandonment. See the results of a lack of supportive family. It can leave a person with a deep, unfulfilled desire. And this is a really tragic thing. This is a tragic history that Big Mom had over in Elbaf. Her isolation and then her abandonment by the nefarious Mother Carmel. There's another one wearing a mask in this story. Here we have, in order to deceive, and it's distressing that a little spirit like Lin would have been abused in that way by a child trafficker, no less. So yeah, you can, I think, see Lin's primal yearning for a mother figure. It does explain a lot about her. And unfortunately, she herself becomes an outsized and twisted version of the thing that she longs for through force. And now let's get back to Katakuri, who transforms from foe to something more complex as he brings out Luffy's determination, his determination to live and to be free and to protect his friends. He pushes Luffy to his absolute limits and beyond, and to hone his haki to the point where he, too, can see what is about to happen, to become something more than himself. And in the process, Katakuri's own legend is shattered. His own imprisonment, though, is shattered at the same time. In becoming less than the legend that surrounds him, the lies about him never lying down or being on his back, right? In this process, Katakuri becomes humanized. And I think it's brilliant how Oda goes about doing this. This fight may go on for a bit, but he was definitely going somewhere very important. The respect that grows in the process of this transformation of both characters, of Luffy, who becomes something greater, and Katakuri, who becomes lessened in a sense, but in the process becomes humanized and more beautiful as a result, even as we see what he looks like, which is, of course, he has been mocked for being monstrous and all of that. But I think it's fair to say that we are given a glimpse of his true beauty in the process. But in being revealed to Luffy for what he is, donut-loving, flaws and all, I think Katakuri gains his freedom from that legend that is imprisoning him. This is actually beautifully symbolized, and I want to acknowledge one of my viewers out there. Thank you so much for this observation about the tattoos. He has the tattoos on him that are bars that imprison him, you could say. But he actually stabs those bars in the process of trying to be equal with Luffy in order to make the fight fair again, because Luffy was unfairly slowed down. In the process of making the fight fair, I think he also liberates himself from that legend. He exposes himself as well. He rips off the mask in that moment and shows himself for what he is. And it is not something that his little sister is terribly pleased to see, but it's who he is. He liberates himself. He comes out of the closet, so to speak, there. And I think that's fantastic. And there is a kind of, as a result, this growing respect between him and Luffy that actually transcends their quarrel. There's a purity to the bond that is formed from this rivalry. It actually reminds me of something that happened in the manga Vagabond. If you've read Vagabond, you probably know immediately what I mean about the purity of the bond between rivals that pushes each of them to become something even greater. And the rivalry becomes something transcendent. It is really quite an astounding part of this arc for me. I really enjoyed this, and that is why Katakuri is now my favorite antagonist in One Piece. But Luffy's gesture at the end, I think, really says it all. He honors Katakuri. He honors his will and his freedom. He sees past the monstrous on the surface, and he respects the humanity beneath. And he does so by simply covering him with the hat where he would wish to be covered. And I thought that was just a really beautiful touch. The respect that has grown between these two, really beautiful part of the story that I enjoyed tremendously. So we see that even rivals can respect each other's freedom. And of course, there's a ton of just fun and chaos and heroics in here that I'm not even going to be able to begin to list. But you've got the whole thing with multiple Luffys bursting out of the wedding cake, the immense destruction in the wake of the tamate box explosion. I'm sorry if I mispronounced tamate. I don't know if that's how that's pronounced, but anyway, there's a big old explosion and a giant, cake island that comes collapsing onto everyone. And there's Nami's cleverness. I can't not mention Nami's cleverness in enlisting Zeus again through food of a sort, right? And bringing him at least temporarily over to the side of the Straw Hats in the process of the chase. You've got Jinbei guiding the Thousand Sunny through the sea chase. I thought that was a brilliant moment too. Carrot's transformation into a Sulong or a moon lion. Brilliant. And later, of course, Peekums does the same thing. Go Peekums. You've got the return of Germa to contribute to the cause. Once again, the return of Jinbei's crew to help out. In particular, there's Waratsumi's heroics in saving the Sunny. And especially, of course, you've got Big Mom's just rampage. I don't think I will ever forget the words wedding cake or ever be able to see a wedding cake the same way again. And of course, there is the ultimate salvation brought about by the cake made by Sanji and pudding, and let's not leave out chiffon. But all that said, I have to say it is the acts of compassion and sacrifice that really stick out the most to me. You've got Reiju. I've already mentioned how she does her best to save Sanji and is willing to give her own life in the process. Pedro. You've got Pedro giving up his life so that others can pursue their vision for a better world. How about Pound? Let's not leave out that guy. Pound giving up his life to Oven's sword, no less, for his daughter Chiffon's freedom. You've got Jinbei's rearguard action and his vow to return to the Straw Hats. I can't wait to see him as a regular part of the crew. That would be awesome. But you've got Luffy, of course, taking on Katakuri in the mirror world so that his crew can go on. You've also got, I think I want to mention this part, although it's from Reverie, but it is very similar, I believe. You've got the one decent celestial dragon, Miasgard, saving Princess Shirahoshi. This is him, basically making himself a target because he's stepping out of line to do this. He is not behaving as the rest of the celestial dragons are. And I would say that each of these courageous acts brings about someone else's freedom. This is the thing I've been talking about from the beginning. Each of these acts brings about someone else's freedom, and they are based on compassion. Also, it's important to note that in the examples of sacrifice, such as Pedro, the sacrificer's will remains through the freedom that he brings about for the others that he makes a sacrifice for. They live his will in the world. That is just another beautiful One Piece theme. And I mentioned Reverie a moment ago, and I want to return to it now to comment on the power and the justice and or injustice and the oppression and the corruption that One Piece portrays here. In Reverie, we see the gathering of all these powers at Marijois. We have this all happening near this new bastion to replace Marineford. Is actually called New Marineford, very creatively named. You have all this gathering of all the monarchs of these kingdoms. You've got the celestial dragons there in all their arrogance and privilege. You have the 5 elders who are speaking of an imminent cleansing because they're sensing that their control is being challenged, perhaps. And you have a mysterious leader. This is the first indication I've seen of this. I think, did I miss something? But there is this mysterious leader, Imu. Is that how you say it? Imu? Whoa. Okay, who is this guy? Who is this? I want to know. I suppose we'll be finding out more. But this is very intriguing, I will say. This little arc here brought up a ton of stuff, a ton of questions that I'm sure One Piece will be exploring. But whoa, some big players introduced here. Let's see where it goes. And of course, you've got the Emperor's as well. Shanks makes a little appearance there, a little, tease of Shanks again. Give us more Shanks, please, Oda. And we've also got, of course, Big Mom she's there. She's not happy. And you've got the other emperor who is the scariest dude ever, who is in front of Luffy and the crew as they head toward Wano. So yeah, there's just Kaido, I think his name is, yes. There's just a lot happening here, and I feel like Reverie just is like a cannonball exploding, and I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm excited to see what it is, for sure. Also, we need to point out that there are the revolutionaries. There's Sabo there, and Luffy's father Dragon is part of this picture, but some new revolutionary characters as well introduced. Very interesting. But they are plotting something big as they infiltrate this big gathering of powers, and also they seem to be setting out to free Kuma from his brutal servitude at the hands of the Celestial Dragons. At the end of all of this, we have the Straw Hats and their friends who are mourning their fallen, and they are honoring their friends' legacy, those they have lost. And they also, of course, have bigger bounties, with Luffy initially believing otherwise about his own because he missed a digit. And of course, the bigger than ever foes before and behind them. You've got the Straw Hats are really on their way. Of course, they're stirring up excitement and they are sustaining each other, not least through food. And they are, of course, armed now with copies of the poneglyphs, thanks to Brooks. I haven't shouted out everybody here, but I do want to shout out Brook, his cleverness in getting copies of the poneglyphs, and also the cleverness of the others in rescuing Brook from being Big Mom's favorite doll. So yeah, just lots of here I'm leaving out, but I can't include everything here. But do leave your comments, as I said. But we are on to Wano, people. We are on to Wano. And I can't wait to see what happens there. But that is it from me for now. Until next time.